It's the champ, Shannon the Cannon, two-time heavyweight champion of the world. And you're watching Sports Icons. Subscribe. Let's go, champ. Let's go, champ. Let's go, champ. Champ.
David Haye and Richard Schaefer have been talking about the potential of Joe Joyce. Now, Joe Joyce has been an amateur for quite a while and turned pro recently by signing with Haymaker Ringstar Promotions, obviously spearheaded by David Haye himself and Richard Schaefer from Ringstar. Now, they're very, very confident in Joe Joyce's ability and what he can achieve. As of right now, they are pretty convinced that Joe Joyce could mix it with any of the heavyweights. And the only two people that they will possibly keep him away from right now are Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. But in 5 or 6 fights' time, they believe Joe Joyce will be ready for that. So there's two short statements here. One of them from David Haye and the other one from Richard Schaefer. So I'll read out David Haye ones first. And this is what David Haye had to say about Joe Joyce. He has time against him in one aspect. He's 31 years of age. But I know firsthand, I've seen what he can do to some very high-level, world-class professional boxers. Joe was sparring with Hughie Fury a couple of weeks ago. He sparred with Anthony Joshua before the Vladimir Klitschko fight, and he gave a very, very good account of himself. He's a 10-round fit today. He could fight a 10-round fight in a week's time, pretty much against anybody in the world, and he would probably win. He's that good. He doesn't need the little 4-rounders against guys from wherever who just turn up. He doesn't want to waste a year hitting people with one shot and then falling over. He wants to do 8 or 10 rounders straight away. He's that advanced. And that was David Haye's statement, and we'll move straight on to Richard Schaefer. If you look at the top 10, 15, 20 ranked heavyweights today, there are only 2 I wouldn't put him in with right now, Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. All of the others I would have no problem with. He needs 5 or 6 fights before we can put him in with Wilder or Joshua. That was Richard Schaefer's statement. So it's great that they're going to hype him and they're very excited about what Joe Joyce can achieve. Now, Joe Joyce is very, very good, but he's very good in the amateurs. We don't know what he's going to be like in the pros. Now, he hasn't always fought with headgear, okay? So he has had quite a few amateur fights with almost pretty much the same way that a pro would do, so no head guards and all that kind of thing. But is he that good? I mean, he's very, very big. He's as tall as Joshua. He towers above David Haye. You've seen the pictures of him. But is he that good that he could mix it with the likes of Wilder, Anthony Joshua in 5 or 6 fights' time? That will be up to, I suppose, what we see of Joe Joyce in the next couple of fights. Now, he's right, or David Haye's right, should I say, that he has been sparring the likes of Hughie Fury. We've seen the footage of that. He's also been sparring with Tyson and Joshua. And allegedly, he gave Joshua a pretty torrid time in sparring on the lead up to Joshua fighting Vladimir Klitschko at Wembley. So, Joe Joyce is very, very good. Now, to put him in a 8 or 10 rounder straight away, that shows great confidence. And yes, he's 31 years old, so he does need to be fast-tracked if he's going to achieve what he wants to achieve in the pro game. Now, there's a couple of things here. Would David Haye allow Joe Joyce to overtake him in the ranking position and get a world title shot before him? Highly unlikely. I really don't think that would happen at all. David Haye, obviously, he got his own ambitions as well. And all his fighters within his Haymaker Ringstar Promotions stable, he will focus solely on once he hangs up his gloves. But when that will be, we don't know. Obviously, we're still waiting on David Haye to announce his next fight, hopefully against Tony Bellew. So, again, with Joe Joyce, like I said, he's very good. Very, very tall. Very good. Very strong. But he's kind of slow. And I don't want to put a negative on him, but he is kind of slow. He's there to be hit. But of course, he has been training with some top athletes, like I said. And obviously, David Haye will be in there as well at some point, as soon as he's ready to be sparring himself. Unless he already is, I don't know. But I think it might be, I think 5 or 6 fights it's too soon for the likes of Joe Joyce to go straight in there with Joshua or Deontay Wilder. But regardless, I mean, like I said, it's very, very good that Richard Schaefer and David Haye have the confidence in Joe Joyce to reach the pinnacle of the heavyweight division. Now, he said that he wants him in with 8 or 10 rounders. But of course, that depends on the opponent, doesn't it? Now, he said that he doesn't want people who just turn up and get pummeled out within the first couple of shots. You know, much like David Haye did against Mark Demore and Arnold Jajai. So he's saying that he doesn't want Joe Joyce to take that route. So if he's going to be putting him in with some big names, then you would imagine David Haye won't want to be left in the shadow of Joe Joyce. So therefore, we would probably expect David Haye to be looking at some big fights himself. Like I said, hopefully Tony Bellew. But there's been quite a few names linked with Joe Joyce. Dave Allen, for one, has been linked with him. Daniel Dubois has also been linked with him. But I think for a debut fight or first couple of fights, it's a bad idea, because if Joe Joyce or Daniel Dubois or David Allen, were to take a loss, it's not a good look for either of those guys. So for an 8 or 10 rounder, who could you possibly have? Obviously, it's not going to be somebody ranked for the first fight, you wouldn't have thought, but definitely British level. I mean, are they going to be looking at the likes of Gary Cornish or a David Price or someone like that? Sam Sexton, of course, Ian Lewison. But regardless, whoever it is, Joe Joyce is going to have a pretty rough night of it for a debut. That's not always a good thing to do. For me, I think, and again, it's just an opinion, that he should go in for a 4-rounder for a first fight, just to get used to the crowd, because although he's highly thought of, obviously he got silver at the Olympics, he needs to get used to fighting in a pro fight. The whole build-up, the cameras are on him, and of course the crowds are there as well. Joe Joyce obviously not going to be a headliner, and when his debut will be, anybody's guess. It really is. With Dave Allen said that he's looking at the Commonwealth title with Lenroy Thomas, so Joe Joyce isn't really on his radar. But of course, money will talk. I mean, obviously David Haye signed up to the Dave channel, so Joe Joyce will be fighting on Dave. What kind of budget that they have to bring a half decent opponent in for Joe Joyce remains to be seen. But it's like anything. You may well be good at the amateurs. You may be very, very good at sparring behind closed doors. I mean, we've seen Dave Allen. Apparently he's rocked no end of top fighters, including Joshua. He's been sparring with the likes of Team Fury and Vladimir Klitschko. But when he gets into the ring, and he says it himself, he hasn't applied that into the live environment. I'm sure he will do one day, and I do expect Dave Allen to become minimum a British champion one day. But with Joe Joyce, it's very good that he's going to be promoted. But I really can't see, it's just me, I just cannot see David Haye allowing Joe Joyce to overtake him in the rankings. And David Haye will allow him a title shot or a big shot at earning some decent money while he's still around. So for Richard Schaefer to say that there's only 2 heavyweights out there that he wouldn't put him in with, and that's Joshua and Wilder, he didn't mention David Haye in that one either. But like I said, we don't know what's happening with David Haye, but clearly Richard Schaefer isn't too worried about what David Haye's doing. He's more concerned about what the young talent's doing. Obviously he's got more than just Joe Joyce, but for heavyweight, and obviously a locally well-known name, if you like, within Britain, obviously because of the Olympics. But I think he may have left it too long to turn pro. But at the same time, you've got the likes of Tony Thompson. Now, he didn't turn pro until he was, 28, 29 years old. And there's quite a few heavyweights out there like that. For example, Luis Ortiz as well. He spent a long time in the amateurs. Triple G, Gennady Golovkin too, and a lot of others. So while the amateurs is a good learning curve, it's totally different to the pros, and you guys don't need me to tell you that. You already know that. So where Joe Joyce will go from here, what kind of opponent he'll be looking at, is anybody's guess. But I think 4 or 5 fights time or 6 fights time, will he be ready for Anthony Joshua or Deontay Wilder? Hard to say. But for me, if you want to talk about Deontay Wilder and these kind of fights, I think David Haye should be looking at those ASAP. But first things first, Tony Bellew. So David Haye, get your ass in gear. Get signing that damn contract. You did say that you would give up whatever. You would agree to whatever terms Tony Bellew said. Tony Bellew has given terms, so sign the damn contract. Get that fight done and dusted. Put an end to your career, as in go fight for the world title. If you don't do it, then retire and then promote Joe Joyce and whatever else. If you're still continuing, don't forget Joe Joyce is there. In 5 or 6 fights time, you could be having a fight against one of your own people. So that'll be an interesting one. So like the video, drop a comment and subscribe.
Dillian the Body Snatcher right here. It's a champ. Big up to Sports and Icon. Subscribe. Otherwise I might pay you guys a visit.